Big broadcast. We are live coast to coast, border to border on the Quad Pod today, and we have a tremendous guest joining us. Rebecca Kimbel is with us. She joins us here via the magic of Skype. And I always enjoy seeing and hearing from Rebecca Kimbel. And we wanted to get her on the Quad Pod today to tell a little bit more about her story. Rebecca, tell us about your latest book. You have a fantastic book here. I want to get some books sold. Tell us a little bit about your book here, my friend, and then we'll jump into the topic here.
Okay. I was born a slave, sold as a slave, and bred as a slave in the United States of America.
Wow.
In a country that we've long since lost our Constitution.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to committing crimes in the name of God. I was born in a Fundamentalist Latter-day Saint Polygamist cult where women are property, they are not people. The religion states completely that the men have the power of God and the priesthood, and you can't defy God because there are very serious repercussions. As a matter of fact, from the basic teachings, I'm going to pull up the basic teachings here on another book. This is called No Man Knows My History, The Life of Joseph Smith. This book is by Fawn Brody. This is very interesting because it tells about Joseph Smith, who is the founder of now the third largest Christian religion in the United States of America, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you read this book, you would discover that Joseph Smith had so many wives it takes two pages to list them.
Jeez.
And many of them were already currently married to living other men.
Wow.
But Joseph Smith got in a little trouble with the law, and he was killed in a shootout. And he was such a genius about creating money that his followers decided that shootout was an execution, that he was killed as a martyr for God. So he became a martyr. And since that time, one of the greatest religions has grown. Now, today, formally, I say formally because there's branches, known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yep.
Now, in the beginning of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, polygamy was the thing. It all started with polygamy. Years later down the road, the Mormon Church, depending on what state they were in, did a lot of fancy little dressing around with the law to escape the consequences that polygamy was literally against the Constitution of the United States.
Yep.
In Utah, they had it against the Constitution in 90, and then they managed to slip out of it.
Wow.
Yeah. But in Arizona, they're still arguing about it because. Are we losing sound?
No, we're good. I'm riveted here. Tell us, my friends. Keep telling us.
Okay, it looked like I was
Nope, we're good. I don't care about the technical issues. We're here to hear your story, my friend. Tell us, Rebecca.
In Arizona, they're still arguing about it. In Arizona, they say that polygamy is still against the law in the United States of America in Arizona.
Okay.
Which is really quite fascinating because there were so many crimes that came out of the Yearning for Zion FLDS ranch in Arizona. Okay?
Yes.
So we'll get into a little bit about how that happened, but first there's some basic things you need to understand about these polygamous cults that continue with polygamy.
Okay.
First and foremost, and number one, you need to understand how the money is held, because it's held that way in the Mexico cults, Ervil LeBaron's cults. It's held that way in all the polygamous cults, Warren Jeffs, the AUB, Apostolic United Brethren, etc., etc. If you don't understand how they hold the money, it's a mind-boggling trip. In the first place, they go out into a place that's kind of desolate, and they get a bunch of homestead land, and they take up that land, in the name of the priesthood. Okay, so they get a bunch of land, and the land is held in the name of the priesthood. It's real important you understand that the people never own their land. Then they go out and they get converts, and they promise these converts that they will give them a piece of land from the church, and the converts come in and they, not the polygamists, build a house on it at their own expense. Being not assured of the law, a lot of the people are uneducated. They do not know that they don't own the land, and they never will. Now they have built a house on somebody else's property, and they don't own the land.
Wow.
Now this happened to my brother Doug. He was with the Apostolic United Brethren group, which was run at that time by my uncle, Rulon Clark Allred, who was murdered later by Ervil LeBaron. Incidentally, I come from a family where there's a lot of murders. You'll discover that reading my book. But he was murdered by Ervil LeBaron. And Doug built his house himself on the land, and this one was up in Pinesdale, Montana. And as his children grew up, they worked for free for the church. All the labor is free for the church. You're working for God. You're donating it to God. So you're not getting wages. The labor is free. So what happened is that his kids not only didn't get any wages, but he found out he didn't have a right to control them. That the priesthood could come in and tell him who he was going to give his daughters to and what he was going to do, and he had no rights as a father. So he became very stressed over that, so he decided to sell his property, and that's when he discovered he didn't have any. So he loaded his children, his important papers, and the family album in a car and got them all together, and then he went and burned his house down to the ground and went to Missouri, and he never came back.
Okay.
So that is just one little aspect of the money. Now, another thing you need to understand is not just the land, but the businesses. The businesses run by these companies are owned by God. Who's God? God is the leader of that particular polygamous group that you're tangled with. They own the businesses. You don't. Most of the labor, almost all of it, except for a few men that they absolutely have to have, is free labor donated to God. It's child labor and free labor donated to God. If you seek into this a little bit, you discover that you'll find a little group of boys called the Lost Boys.
Okay.
These kids are free slave labor. And when they get old enough to start getting interested in girls, they evict them from the community for combing their hair wrong or listening to rap music or looking at a girl. They get rid of them.
That is amazing.
They're absolutely evicted and turned out and no place to go.
Wow.
Now, the thing is that these kids haven't committed any sin. They're getting rid of them so that they don't have breeding competition for the upcoming girls.
Wow.
That's exactly why they're getting rid of them. Now, here's the third one. All of these women and children, except the legal wife. Now, let's go back to the legal wife. One wife is legally married to her husband. Beyond that, all the wives that he takes are not legally married. And because they're not legally married, they're all eligible for food stamps, welfare, medical care, on and on and on. And as we get going here, you'll be astonished to what the massive numbers of money that brings in.
Yes. Well, let's focus on that aspect. Rebecca Kimbel with us today. She joins us live here on our big program, talking a little bit about polygamy. And so let's do the money. Let's focus on the money here. So where does the money come in? How does it come in? You're the expert. Give us all the details on the money aspect of polygamy.
Okay, we left out one very important thing.
Okay.
of these illegitimate wives and children that get welfare are not allowed to keep their welfare money.
Okay.
Women are not allowed to handle money, period. So when the welfare check comes in, it was like my dad when I was a little girl. When the welfare check came in, Daddy came over and got it. In those days, they delivered some dry goods like cornmeal or oatmeal or something, a commodity, with the welfare checks. Mom would beg Dad, please, could you leave some of that? And he would say, no, I will not. You've got 6 kids that if you haven't got enough intelligence to teach them how to make a living, you don't deserve to eat. And he would take everything.
Wow.
Now, keep in mind this. My dad, like all the polygamous men I ever met, my dad would go out to restaurants, eat steaks with his friends on that money. Mom never got a dime. And he would do anything he wanted because that was his money. And so Mom never got a dime. And this is consistent with every one of them. The thing is, people can't just up and leave. They have no transportation. They have no money. They have no way to go. People say, why did they stay? How are they going to leave? They can't even afford a bus. They're not going anywhere.
It's amazing.
So they're really stuck. They're really, really stuck. Now, when I wrote my book, I want you to know that I'm available now at www.rebeccakimbel.com. And I am affiliated with a Christian church, and you can get on my website to find them, called A Shield and a Refuge. Why have I chosen this church? Because it was founded by people that have escaped this problem. It is a wonderful Christian church, and they understand the psychology that is needed to help these people. And it really is a psychology. I've gone to several other Christian churches, and when they find out the history of these people and where they came from, it's very difficult for them to be more derogatory than helpful. So this particular little church, the Shield and the Refuge, is a blessing. And what my hope and my prayer is at this time is that I am working on trying to create a television series, not just with my book, but with many other courageous people who've had the courage to tell their truth, to educate the United States of America about what is happening, and hope and pray we can get back the original Constitution of the United States. Now, why did I say that? Let me explain a little more to you. It's been said over and over and over. These polygamous groups are not affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. However, I have a little shock for you. Not very long ago, Anderson Cooper got online and he told us that millions and millions of dollars every year were spent providing welfare to these so-called non-married women and all their children, millions. And then last year, the primary church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints themselves, decriminalized polygamy. Now it is not illegal anymore. You don't get any more for it than you do for a traffic ticket. Wow. So now it is expected that those millions of dollars that we paid will avalanche and avalanche and avalanche into millions more, because now they can have all the wives they want to, and you're still going to be paying for them. There's no limit. Now, the excuse that they used to get this legalized was that it's only a sexual choice, just like gay marriage. But I have news for you. Gay marriages don't produce hundreds and thousands of fatherless children for your taxes to pay for. So I'd like to ask you, in this day of the COVID virus, forest fires, and hurricanes, is polygamy really where America wants to spend their tax dollars?
That is amazing that polygamy is basically funded by the government.
It is funded by the government. All of these extra wives and children are funded by the government. So we can go into a little bit of the nonsense of how that happens.
Yes.
we can kick right on down here to Texas, to Texas, when they started looking into the Texas ranch down there with the polygamists. A Texas congresswoman wanted a hearing into the contracts given to the business ties with the Fundamental Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Representative Kay Ganger of Fort Worth sent a letter to the Armed Services Committee representing a hearing about $1.2 million in Department of Defense contracts that went to New Era Manufacturing.
Wow.
Granger acknowledged in her letter that religious affiliation should have nothing to do to determining their contracts. However, she sought more scrutiny from the companies because, as a member of Congress, she was concerned that the federal tax dollars may have been misused to fund the sex illegal activities. She just discovered that New Era Manufacturing Company was formerly Western Precision, which was owned by the Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints and formerly in Hilldale, Utah. Then it relocated to Nevada. A San Leandro congressman said that the Congress people were going to probe into the company and see what had ties in the, I think you pronounce it Schlesser County. It's German. I'm not good at German. Polygamous sex raided last month. She was not rushing to judgment, but she was concerned about the contracts based in Nevada. U.S. Representative Mike Conway, a member of the committee that might investigate, said the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had a legitimate business, so he believed. It was called New Era Manufacturing of Las Vegas, formerly awarded more than $1 million in defense contracts. Now, keep in mind, this $1 million, if you go into the paperwork, Warren Jeffs, Rulon Jeffs' father, was controlling the business then, and absolutely all of it was in his name. He did all of the bookwork. Warren Jeffs' father performed my marriage when I was a child bride.
Wow.
So as we seek into these different things, you know, I have a lot of connections with literally all of them.
Holy smokes.
A New Era presentation said allegations about wages of the company are absolutely nonsense. Now, we'll get into the nonsense here in just a minute. It was discovered when they went to the FLDS ranch that the ranch had been raided on suspicions of widespread child abuse and forced marriages. Please keep in mind the word forced marriages, because later down the road it was people tried to say, well, as long as the girls are of age, it doesn't matter whether they have permission or not.
Wow.
Okay, which you know, nobody seemed to question that. You don't question the word of the Lord. The FLDS practices a form of plural marriage with unions that are not intended to be recognized by law. The split from the LDS Church decades ago. And this raid began on April 3 at the ranch in El Dorado, where 464 children were taken into state custody. And that was just the beginning. Allegations of sexual abuse at the compound surfaced after they got a phone call from a woman's shelter from a girl that said she was 16 years old, the mother of an 8-month-old baby, and an abuse victim at the hands of her 50-year-old spiritual husband at the compound.
Wow. Absolutely
Okay.
amazing. Rebecca Kimbel with us today. Keep going, my friend. Keep going.
So this Texas congresswoman wanted an investigation into the hearings of the Department of Defense contracts that had awarded New Era Manufacturing of Las Vegas $1.2 million in a no-bid contract. They said that a recent letter to the committee leaders and Fort Worth Republicans were looking into their tax dollars, finding they have funded illegal activities, and about the reports that the company made sect members work for little or no pay. Little or no pay. Now, the reason I point this out is they all do that. My brothers grew up in the Apostolic United Brethren polygamous cult, and they were working as young as 9-year-olds, 3 stories up, placing shingles on roofs for God. They were donating their time to God. And this is consistent. And you know what they got for it? They got fed that day.
That's amazing.
That was it.
It is Rebecca Kimbel. She's with us today here on the Quad Pod, joining us live, talking a little bit about this incredible book that she has here, plus talking about the world of polygamy. We've got a little bit of time left here in this chat, my friend. I want to talk about the book. How do we get the book? How do we get involved with you? Everything, because this is about helping you sell some books here, my friend.
The book is available on Amazon. It's called Born in Polygamy.
Okay.
And you can contact me at www.rebeccakimbel.com if you want to find out more. There's a lot of shows on there. There's a lot of information on incest.
Yes.
Incest could be another whole show. There is a disease called Fumerouse deficiency that is caused from incest, and it creates mental and physical deformities.
Wow.
And it is the highest in the entire world in these fundamentalist polygamist Latter-day Saint cults. In the world. But, my buddy, these little deformed kids that can't grow up and think correctly bring in $6,100 and some odd dollars in your government funding every month. And they continue to produce them.
Rebecca Kimbel with us today. She joins us live here on the Quad Pod. I would love to get you and IQ Al Rizzoli together at some point, because he is always talking about, on our other programs, he always talks about the Muslim religion, and he compares a lot of it sometimes to polygamy and the polygamist religion in some of the different ways that they do things. I would love to work out some details and do something with you guys at some point next month. That would be fun.
That would be great. I'd like to tell you that as far as stealing your tax dollars in exactly the same way, the Muslims are doing the same thing. However, the Mormons are doing it by the billions and billions, and I think that if we could get back to the Constitution of the United States, where polygamy was once again illegal. Please keep in mind the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is one of the wealthiest churches in America.
Yeah.
It is the 3rd largest, most wealthy church of a so-called Christian denomination in the United States, if I understand correctly. There is no logical reason that they can't support their own children. None. And they've got so much money now that they're planning on building 2 new temples in China right away. So they've got more than megabucks. So I'd just like to ask you one question here.
Yes, yes.
And I know this sounds kind of crazy, but with the COVID virus, with the forest fires, and with the hurricanes, is polygamy really where America wants to spend their tax dollars?
Well, that is a question that we will have to tackle some other time, my friend. I thank you for doing this. Definitely want to have you with IQ Al Rizzoli at some stage of the game on our other programs. I've got to wrap up here, but I appreciate you making time. Thanks for being with us today here on the Quad Pod, Rebecca.
Thank you so much. You know, I believe that education is the answer. I don't think you can fix something you don't understand.
Yes.
And I thank you so much for everything you're doing to help people comprehend what's going on with their money.
Yes, indeed. Well, Rebecca, have yourself a blessed weekend. I will talk to you soon. Thank you, my friend.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. There she goes, Rebecca Kimbel. Joins us today here on the Quad Pod. And that wraps it up here for this edition of the Quad Pod. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.